If you want to know what happened to Buddhism in India, at one time it was a very powerful, very, very powerful, successful religion. I mean, it was really big. The Buddhists controlled various kingdoms, including Kashmir, by the way. At one time, Kashmir was a Buddhist kingdom. And, but people were just thinking, like, who wants to be nothing? I'd rather be something. It's like, imagine, you're living in India, imagine 2,000 years ago, was about the time that Buddhism really started to be drawn into Vaishnavism. And so imagine you're in India, and let's say some tragedy occurred. Let's say someone you love very much in your family died, and India was a free country, and so Buddhist preacher says, well, the good news is, let's say your mother died, she didn't really exist anyway. So, why worry about something that isn't even real? That's not kind of like a great example of grief counseling. And then let's say a Vaishnava preacher comes and says, well, your mother worshipped the Lord, therefore she has a great life now. And so it's not just that people believe what they want to believe, but within our hearts, we know the truth, that virtue is rewarded, that the soul does go on, that we're not the body. And even the Buddhists, it's funny, for people that said there's no self, they were really obsessed with their karma, which is completely contradictory. So there were all kinds of contradictions in Buddhist philosophy, because it started out just as, it's kind of like Happy Life for Dummies, in the sense that, the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism. I'm not saying the Buddhists were dummies, but it was very simple. The four simple truths were that you're suffering because you're selfish. Stop being selfish and you'll stop suffering. Join Buddhism and you'll stop suffering. Live right, right speech, right behavior, right everything. So that was it. And actually we know from history that many of the early Buddhists believed in a soul, believed in an eternal soul, such as the Pudgala bodies. And that then they came up with this non-self doctrine, which, by the way, Buddha himself never taught everyone. I mean, scholars know that. He never actually taught that there's no self. But then people just weren't buying it. I mean, at first they were successful. One of the main reasons they were successful, actually, was not philosophical. It was social, because they opposed the caste system. And so let's say, for example, you were a king. Buddha himself appeared in the Kshatriya order, and he attracted a lot of Kshatriyas, which means you got the whole kingdom at no extra cost. And one of the reasons was that there were a lot of kings back then who were just really tired of being bullied by Brahmins. You had these corrupt Brahmins who were arrogant and just kind of causing a lot of trouble. So if you became a Buddhist, suddenly you could just give a particular famous mudra to these corrupt Brahmins, which involves the middle finger. Anyway, you could just tell the Brahmins to take a hike, and suddenly, I mean, you had the same dynamic actually in the Protestant Reformation, where you had a corrupt church that owned half of Germany. And so if a German prince decided, hey, I think Luther is really speaking for God, suddenly you became an overnight multimillionaire. Because, land was money. That was the agrarian age. Land was money. If half the land in your country is owned by the Vatican, and you decide to become a Protestant, suddenly you're really rich. You have a lot more power. And so there was something like that going on with the spread of Buddhism. It actually is analogous to the spread of Protestantism in Europe, at least certain parts of Europe, especially Northern Europe. So, but in any case, eventually, like today, according to scholars, 85% of living Buddhists in the world, 85%, that's almost everybody, are Mahayana Buddhists, which means that they believe in heaven, they believe in a personal savior, like bodhisattvas that come. And so the point is that all that no self, everything is just shunyavad. It's like It's not like the life of the party. It's not something that you can really base human life on. And Buddhism spread around the world to the extent they just started acting like a normal religion. And eventually people thought, well, if we're going to have a normal religion, and if Buddha is an avatar of Vishnu anyway, then why not just take the original normal religion that actually has a lot more stuff going on for it, like the Ramayana and Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita. If we're just going to have a normal religion, why not do that one? So that's what happened in India. That's what happened to Buddhism in India.